So Donald Trump went to NATO at The Hague, and I went to see 28 years later, and these two things are connected. 28 years later is obviously the second sequel to Danny Boyle and Alex Garland's non-zombie zombie franchise, where zombies take over Britain. And it's a bad movie, but it's an amazing movie. It's a bad movie because it's sloppy. It's lazily directed and written. I don't even like these kinds of movies, these zombie type movies, but I went because I like Danny Boyle and I like Alex Garland's writing very much, but I thought it was bad. It was lazily written and lazily put together as a film, but it's amazing for reasons that I'm not hearing anybody talk about. And I think that nobody wants to say it out loud. So, of course, I have to. So here's Boyle and Garland in a kind of promotional video describing what they were doing when they made this movie. Just to bring you up to date, this rage virus has taken over Britain and it's now in quarantine. So it's only the only people dealing with this are the remaining survivors in Britain. And then the rest of the world is kind of just patrolling to make sure nobody goes on and catches this, what they call the rage virus. And here is Boyle and Garland talking about how they put together the sequel, Boyle first and then Garland, cut 14.
In 28 years later, we tried imagining how a world would rebuild itself after an apocalypse.
Initial conversations were often about imagining what does 28 years later mean. If the infection is still on Britain, what does the infection look like?
Get back to the truth.
How does the rest of the world respond to that?
So I don't have time to analyze the whole picture because I want to talk about other things. But this is a world in which the British have been reduced to medieval villagers, and they are they are back in medieval Britain. There are no black faces in this movie except for one zombie. The big zombie it looks like he's a brown guy. There are no women warriors because the way they're fighting, they have to pull these bows while they're running. 0% of women could do that, so they just don't. There are no women warriors. The women are back, keeping the home fires burning while the men go out and fight these things. And they've returned to nationalism, so they keep cutting away from the fights with the zombies, which are mostly bow and arrow fights. They keep cutting away to war movies of Britain, especially Laurence Olivier's Henry V movie, which is obviously Shakespeare's play about the greatest hero king, Henry V, and his great battle at Agincourt against the French, where just a few Britons beat a massive French army with their bows and arrows, and he's a great nationalist hero. So they've gone back to their British roots, and you can't help but think that the zombies are, if they're not the Muslims, they're all the people who have come in, all the migrants who have come in, and all the people who are furious at them. But I don't know if they are. I think they're just the migrants. They've been reduced to the white British, and their flag is the cross, the English flag, not the British flag, which is just a cross, a red cross on a white background. There's one representative of high culture and tolerance, who is Ralph Fiennes, and he's mourning the deaths of both the zombies and the regular people, but he's living in a temple of death. He's the representative of British high culture. He quotes Shakespeare. He speaks Latin. He has tolerance for all mankind, but he is living in a temple of death. Basically, all he represents now is death. And in the end, and this is a slight spoiler, but I'll keep it as vague as I can, the soccer yobs, the Tommy Robinsons become the ultimate warriors against this threat. I'm not saying, by the way, that Danny Boyle is saying, yes, this is the way it should be. He's saying this is what will happen if there is nothing left to do but fight. I think that's what he's saying. He's not recommending anything. He's simply giving you a vision of what that apocalyptic world looks like. And nobody's talking about this because nobody wants to say, yeah, the zombies are the Muslims in England who are raping women while the authorities look away, which is how the thing starts. It starts with children watching Teletubbies, this complete fantasy of a peaceful, loving world, until the monsters come in and devour everybody while the priest just sits there sort of crazily helpless. And that's the first scene in 28 years later, that basically the first thing to go is when the church stops being a bulwark of what? Of values, of human values, of humanity itself. So, after the disaster of the 30 Years' War, being World War I and World War II, Europe died. and I've put this forward a lot of times, and people don't like to hear it, especially Europeans, but also people in the State Department. They think, oh, no, don't say that. But that Europe had the greatest culture that had ever existed on Earth between 1500 and 1914. 30 years it died, and they chose to let it die. They went into this stupid war, World War I, for no reason, and then just let Hitler rise up while they just sort of twiddled their thumbs and said, well, we don't want any more of that war stuff. And then the fact that they murdered the Jews tells you who they were rejecting when they chose death. The big Jew, Jesus, is they were rejecting that religion, and they just decided, we're not doing this anymore. We're choosing not to be alive anymore. We're going to give up all our colonies. We're going to stop fighting wars. We're going to rely on the Americans to fight wars. We're going to pretend to be part of NATO, but we're not putting any money in there. And they let the Americans fight the wars, and we'll take the money that we save by not having to fight wars, and we'll have a great healthcare system, and we'll laugh at the Americans for not having as good a welfare system as us because they have to pay to protect us. That's death. That is saying we are no longer participating in our own defense. We're regressing to children. We're going, well, I'll talk about socialism in a minute, but socialism is a form of death and a form of authoritarianism. And so Trump goes off to NATO to try and convince them to come back to life, to join the living, to choose life by defending themselves like men. That is what he goes back to do. And everybody's making fun of the head of NATO, Mark Rutte of the Netherlands. Trump got ticked off when Israel and Iran violated the ceasefire, and he said they've been fighting so long, they don't know what the F they're doing. And he cursed on mic. And when he was asked about that, he said sometimes when kids are fighting, you have to let them fight for a while and then tell them to stop. And Rutte said sometimes daddy has to use harsh language, and everybody made fun of him, calling Trump daddy as if they were in a gay leather bar. And I just want to say that it's fine to make fun of powerful people, but I don't think that he wants to be in a sadomasochistic homosexual relationship with Trump. I have no proof of that except for the fact that he called him daddy. So I guess I have a little proof of it. But other than that, I have nothing to say about it. But Trump scored a big win. He got them to put in some more money into NATO to pay for more defense because daddy is begging Europe to come back to life. And the thing about life is not peaceful. Death is peaceful. When you're just lying there, it's peaceful. And again, I want to emphasize this. I hate war. I love peace, but pacifism is not a moral point of view. And that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. That's what I'm hitting Tucker for. That's what I'm hitting CNN and the rest of the news media for, is what they're doing is not moral. They are not saying moral things. They are not siding with the people who are moral. Israel is a moral country because it's free and equal. That's what makes it a moral country. It's not a good country because it's filled with people. No country that has people in it is going to be a good country, but you can have a moral system, and that's what they have. Pacifism is not a moral point of view. It means that if you want to go on living, someone else has to fight your battles for you. Morality, real morality, has to refer to reality. And in reality, because freedom is life, people are going to try and take your freedom away. You can't be a pacifist or you will lose your life. So Trump is trying to revive Europe by getting them to commit to their own defense. And we should want that because the signs of Europeans choosing death were peace and socialism. That was the other sign of their choosing death. It's like we're no longer going to create money. We're just going to take the money that was created and spread it around and take it from the people who made it and give it to everybody else. For more Klavan-y magnificence, like and subscribe. And for even more, subscribe to The Andrew Klavan Show wherever you get your podcasts.